Hi, is this Rachel Jeffs?
It is.
Hi there, it's Mike and Jay from the Detroit Cast. How you doing today?
Hey, Rachel.
Good. Hi, good to hear you.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up. We've read your book, Breaking Free: How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and my father, Warren Jeffs. I got to tell you, Rachel, I could not put this book down.
Yeah, it was good. It was
I'm
good.
glad that you enjoyed it.
It was good. It was troubling, but it was good.
Yeah.
How's it doing?
I think it's doing pretty good. I haven't really asked him.
Haven't asked them.
I mean,
Rachel,
I've seen it in Costco and Walmart and everything.
you're an author now. You need to know these numbers.
You wrote a good book. Like I said, I couldn't put it down. I do have a question for you. The FLDS is the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints. It's a Mormon sect. How would that differ from regular Mormon, what people think of as the Mormon church?
Basically.
It's a lot different because you know how the Mormon church banned polygamy and the FLDS haven't. And then how the FLDS believe in the one-man rule, like one man has the right to govern the people without anybody else's say, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, it's way more restrictive. They have so much more, so many more rules, so many more.
And that's the prophet aspect of it, right? When you were, I think when you were first born, your grandfather was kind of looked at as the prophet, the leader of this FLDS group. And then that obviously went down to your father after your grandfather's death.
Yeah, and it just got so much more restrictive and worse as when Warren Jeffs took over, you know, he just became way more restrictive with the people.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the details of that coming up. How do you feel about your father, Warren Jeffs, now? I mean, he's serving life plus 20. He's never going to be out of jail, but what are your thoughts on him?
I'm glad he's there. I feel like that's where he should be. He made the wrong choices. And
When's the last time you spoke with him?
in 2011, the one time I saw him, that was the last time I talked to him.
Well, you know, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Is that something where you're able to look back at your past with him and see the good? Or, because I got to be honest with you, when I read your book, I wanted to hurt him. I felt honest rage for him, and I felt so bad for you guys.
You know, I'm grateful for the good he taught. You know, he did opposite of what he taught us. He was abusive. He did all these things. I'm grateful for the good I learned from him, but at the same time, I know he's a bad person. I know he did wrong. And I guess what makes me angry at him is that he's basically a liar. He taught one thing and did another.
Yeah.
And then how he hurts my family, and it makes me very sad at him.
Yeah, and a lot of what you are upset about we'll get to, but it revolves around abuse of you as a small child. I think started at the age of 9 or so.
92, yeah.
I have a 9-year-old daughter. I swear, I'm like Mike. I mean, I was reading this book. I wanted to kick this guy in the teeth. I couldn't believe what he had put you through. And I understand later in life you learned that some of your sisters were also put through that. How widespread was his molestation, though? Was it just across the church he was molesting women, or was it centralized to his daughters?
You know, I don't even know how widespread it is. I really have no clue how widespread it is, how many of my sisters are included, or you know, I think it pretty much just happened to people in his family, his close family, the young girls he married, and his daughters and his sisters, but I don't know how exactly an amount of how far it went.
Yeah, well, I know Jay's daughter, and she is a little bit older than you were at the time, and when I try to envision that little child like you would have been, and just how utterly confusing that would be, because the trick to this religion or cult is that you need to make everyone believe that disobedience of the prophet is the ultimate sin. And so if you believe that, then you can't question them. You can't, everything they're doing can't be wrong. So to an 8-year-old, when you hear, Rachel, father wants to see you in his office, and then you're molested, it's like, I just can't imagine what that does to a little girl's head.
I know, and I think it's way worse when it's your own dad. Like, you know, I've heard a lot of stepdads and stuff like that do that, but I think it's quite rare that an own dad does that, and I think that's what hurts so much, is that in reality he loved himself more than his own kids.
Yeah, that becomes very clear.
Yeah, and the amount of control he exerted, especially once he goes into prison, you know, he just starts moving people around like it's a chessboard or something. What was his end game, do you think? In other words, did he have a grand overall goal, like creating a utopian society that he'd rule over, or was he just out to marry as many women as possible and have sex with them and control them?
I think he just loved power. I think he loved power, and I think because of his suffering in prison, he wanted everybody else to.
Did he ever get to any sort of like end of times type prophecies that were coming down the pike? Or?
Oh, so much. We'd get told by the end of the year something, a big something in space will hit the Earth, and, it wouldn't happen. And I'd just like, hey, obviously nothing he says really happens. Sometimes he'd watch the news and tell us that something was going to happen because we didn't get to see the news, and it had already happened.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a dirty trick. Oh, that's a dirty trick. That's not, you can't watch yesterday's news and act like you're breaking it. Come on. Well, I want to be very careful about how I pose this question, Rachel, because I don't mean to offend, but from an outsider's perspective, it's very hard for regular people just going through life to not laugh or go, how dumb are these people when you see Scientologists or, the cult you were with or Jim Jones or Westboro Baptist? And you just go, how can these people follow this garbage? It's so obviously.
I don't know how you could get converted to that. I see growing up in it where no other way and you don't have any access to the outside world. Mm-hmm. I can see I can see why people do when they grow up in it. I don't understand how someone out here can go join something like that, because for me it just looks crazier and crazier the further I get away. And I understand why even what we lived is a small degree, but even North Korea is in that same boat as far as they're grown up in it. They don't know any other way.
Yeah, that's the feeling I had, and I was going to say that to you too. Like, I really don't blame the children who just grew up in this.
Yeah,
but
not at all.
But you mentioned the prophecies. Oh, the world's going to end, and then of course it doesn't. And it seems like after so many of those episodes, you go, man, does this guy know what he's talking about? I don't know. He's saying all this stuff's going to happen, and it never does. But they still seem to hang in there.
And then after it didn't happen, he'd say, well, it was just a test to see if you would have faith, and so it's really confusing.
Well, I kept expecting on every page of the book for you to say that you were considering leaving, but it wasn't until page 218, I think, that you first raised the prospect, and that was only after your sisters, or one of your sisters, I guess, snapped and left. Why did it take? Why did it take you so long? I mean,
I was screaming at the book.
Yeah, again,
run,
with respect, I don't want to be disrespectful. I understand when you're raised in that situation, it's totally different, but man, it just seemed to take you a lot longer than maybe it should have.
I think a lot probably because my biggest thing was I had a hard time leaving with, I wanted at least one person to understand me. Like at the point where I decided, okay, I can leave is when I found out my sister had gone through the same experiences, and I knew that she knew that father was wrong and we were right. And she'd understand me. I just needed to know that I had at least one person in my family that still loved me, because it hurt so bad to lose the love of my family and my friends. And I don't know, that just gave me strength to know that I could leave. And then the reason I didn't leave until after them is because I wanted to talk to my husband.
Yeah.
Before
Rich.
I left. But then when I realized that wasn't going to happen, then I just left.
Well, it's hard for us to wrap our heads around, because if you grow up in any sort of stable environment, you know that the people that you are supposed to trust the most are your parents. They're the ones that are not going to do you harm. And, and seeing the mind games that Warren Jeffs, your father, is playing with you was so utterly disturbing, where he'd molest you and then he would say, hey, Rachel, you didn't pass the test yesterday. And you're like, what test? And I think he said something like, I asked you to touch me, and you did. That shows me you have immoral thoughts and desires.
Oh, what a dick.
And it's like, are you, so I have to do everything you say or I'm disobeying the prophet, yet when I do, it's my fault. And it's just, it's just hard to wrap your head around. I know I'm saying that a lot, but it really is.
Yeah, and I feel like, and because he's done that so much with the people now, he really has driven a lot of people crazy. He really has.
Yeah, and then it wasn't much better when you finally get the courage up to tell your mom, and she storms out, you think to confront him, and then she comes back like nothing happened, and it's never mentioned again. That's got to be very, very disappointing to a little girl.
Yeah, it was just really hard just mostly confusing as a little girl. You don't. As a little girl, I really, really wondered if I was bad. I really started wondering if I was just bad, and that's why I was going through that,
Yeah, well, this went on for quite a few years. You did finally get the nerve to stand up to him, the molestation stuff that had gone on. As far as I understand, there was never any penetration, though. But
Right.
you did stand up to him, stormed out of his office, and the next morning he's on his knees begging forgiveness. Do you think there was any sincerity in his apologies at that point?
It was so fake. It just felt so fake. I just felt
Really?
like, just get up off your knees and quit it.
Oh, God.
You endured so much, reading this book page after page. You're just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy's manipulation. He got to the point again when he was imprisoned. As you said, it seemed like he was taking it out on the people. Like he couldn't enjoy life's pleasures, so neither was his church. So he started giving edicts like, you shouldn't eat certain things. You shouldn't get medical care. You shouldn't show each other affection. You could only shake hands. You can't have sex with your husbands, the husbands that he, by the way, planned for you and shoved you into marriage with.
Any couple that suffered a miscarriage was guilty of murder of an unborn child.
You couldn't have sex while pregnant.
Yep.
Describe what it's like to be under that sort of control to the level of where you haven't even met the guy you're about to marry. But here he is, your dad's hooking you up with this guy and you're going into this situation
Terrified.
where you're married to a guy who already has 2 wives.
It was really scary, but I planned. I pretty much knew all my life that's how it was going to be. So I expected it, but it was beyond scary. I was terrified. At the same time, I was glad that I was getting away from my father. Really,
Yeah.
I was kind of glad to be getting away from that. And then, it was so scary for first, and I didn't love him. I had to learn to love him. But eventually to realize that he was different than my dad really helped me realize, that all men aren't like him.
Well, it sounded like you got pretty lucky. Rich seemed like a good guy for at least a good portion of the book. But
yeah.
What was the biggest challenge, though, it being put into a polygamist marriage? You've got multiple wives having to deal with that. What was the biggest challenge?
I think you try to make him your best friend, but you just always feel like he is cheating on you. He's like, he has to reprove his love every time you are together alone again, because you just feel like it's not really there. You're not really best friends, even though you try so hard to be.
Well, it seems like the deal of this polygamous lifestyle is a much better deal for the guy.
I was going to say, is there any positive to the women?
I
can't find a lot if there are some.
And I think it's really painful for the children because the sister wives, take advantage of the other mother's children and hurt them if they're mad at the other wife and stuff.
But do you consider it when you look back at it now and the time? It sounds like you have a overall positive view of Rich, and he was a decent guy. But do you think?
I think he's stupid.
Yeah, you think he's stupid?
And because he also, I do. I think he's stupid because of all people, Warren just confessed to him that he had done wrong.
Yeah.
And yet he follows him, and I also think he's stupid because he has never tried to be in his kid's life, help take care of him or anything since he left.
Do you look back and feel like it was a real relationship? Because it seems like in a real relationship, you can voice your opinion without fear of consequence.
Yeah, no, it was, it was definitely not a real relationship because now I can say whatever I want. And that's what you're supposed to do to a best friend, and I couldn't.
This is going to be a difficult question, but I've always wondered, is there foreplay in that religion or is it just about procreation?
Yeah, there was some foreplay.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on the spot or make it awkward.
Probably disobediently, but yeah. I think there's human nature, so yeah.
Yeah.
It sounded like Warren had his fun with several women in bed and so forth, so he could do what he wanted.
I think it was all about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, to say you had an odd upbringing is an understatement, but did you understand possibly how different you were from the typical American girl?
Yeah, in lots of ways. I very much knew we were different. Warren Jeff, as my dad, taught us that we were different in the world.
Better, right?
And we were taught that we were way better, that we should be grateful who we were, that we were better people. And so in a way, we almost looked down on the world like we were better, but then at the same time, you could tell that the world looked at us like we were stupid, so you just had mixed feelings about it. You didn't know how to feel.
Did you feel sorry for us, or did you guys hate us? Or
walking around in your pastel dresses.
No, I never hated. I remember
down your nose.
looking above your big poofy hair at all of us.
I remember thinking, it seems like there's really a lot of nice people out here. And no matter what my dad said, I remember thinking it seems like there's a lot of good people. And I don't think that Heavenly Father would just love such a teeny amount of his kids.
I know this sounds cheap, but I got to be honest. If I was all on board going into the FLDS, I'm like, this is my religion. I'm going in. If I was a woman, as soon as I saw the dresses and the hairstyles, I'd take it. I'd leave.
It's game changing.
It is game changing. It would rule me out of the religion. I might have to burn in hell for that, but I can't do the dresses.
No offense.
I can't now. I mean, me either. It's just like, seriously, did we look that ugly?
You must hate Easter.
But
at this
you
point.
grow up that way. You don't even think different until you can.
No, it's cool. You have some pictures here in the book, and you're obviously documenting a lot of the time that you were in FLDS, and we see the dresses we're talking about. But then you also put in a couple of you currently with Brandon and your children, and you're dressed in secular clothing and so forth.
Dude, I looked at that. I went, "Oh my God, she's hot!
Yeah,
look at her!
Look at her!
She's actually hot.
Yeah.
Without those pastel dresses and weird hair, she's actually hot."
Yeah, how much did you know about the outside world before you got out? Like, you refer at different points about having a cell phone and texting, but you'd only seen Bambi. Like, that was the only movie you'd ever seen, and you're like 20-some years old when you got out.
I didn't. I mean, I knew how it worked. I went to just grocery stores, Walmart, Costco, stuff like that. I mean, I saw the world, but I didn't see a lot of it. My dad introduced me to like pornography and stuff, so I knew.
Yeah, that was a nice part of the book.
Probably more than a lot of other people in the church.
Yeah.
But in a way, I mean, so I saw things that probably a lot of people didn't, but at the same time, I didn't really know the joy and the happiness that was out here until I left.
Well, what was the most
surprising?
Freedom. Yeah. Aside from the intangibles like that, though, what was the most surprising thing, like culturally, that you didn't know about that you were being deprived of?
Happiness. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was so surprised how free I was. Like, to not be looking over my shoulder or think somebody's going to get after me for everything I did. I was so surprised how free I was and how good it felt to be free. I didn't even realize how not free I was until I was free, Right. And then I guess culturally, I really enjoyed the music. I realized that what we got told that the music was also bad. A lot of songs.
What do you like?
I was going to say
what band?
A good something that brings out something good in you.
What do you?
What's your music?
Everything. I don't really have a favorite.
Like Luther Campbell, or like are you into like country music, Eminem?
A lot of pop rock, country. I like
Nickelback,
country.
Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I like them. Yeah, I like them.
All right. Hey, when it's funny, there's so many similarities between North Korea and being behind the walls of a cult like this, where you don't really get to see the outside world, and there are forever people trying to infiltrate North Korea, especially from the South, and let them know, like, oh my God, there's a whole world out here that you're being deprived of. So when I hear you guys are like at the grocery store or the library, did anyone ever pull you aside and be like, hey, this is kind of a cultish thing, and there's a whole other world out there you're not being told about?
No, because we were told to not talk to anyone, out in the outside world, and we were told that everyone would lie to us, try to get us to leave because
covered it all.
I mean, that's how it is. That's how it is.
Trust no one but me ever. It's all a trap and a setup.
Hey, what do you think? What do you think about organized religion today? I mean, do you subscribe to Mormonism or anything?
Nope, I don't feel like I can follow organized religion at this point, because it's just, to me, I feel like so often men use religion to get power over people. And so, I am a Christian. I believe in God, but I just don't feel like I need to go through a man to get there.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So you do believe in God. See, it wouldn't have surprised me if you said, yeah, no, I'm out. I can't do it. But that's interesting.
I feel like, in a way, he helped me get out. I feel like he was a strength to me to define the difference between my dad and really what God was. I didn't feel like they were at all the same kind of people.
There were a few parts of this book. I told you in the beginning how I literally wanted to hurt your dad at certain points. And there was a part in this book when I really kind of wanted to take Rich on as well. And that it was so disturbing to hear.
Where do we find Rich?
Yeah, where can we find it? Yeah, she's like, let me know if you find him.
I'd like to know, because he needs to help take care of his kids.
It's hard though, Rachel, to wrap your head around, this is your son, this is your flesh and blood, and Rulon has an accident and you guys are building a house or something and there's a door, there's no deck. He ends up wandering out there at 3 years old, falls 2 stories onto the pavement below. And you're like, okay, we got to go to the hospital. And Rich is like, no, we can't without Father's blessing. And basically says, no, I'll just bless him. I'll pray for him. And 3 days later is when you finally end up taking him to the hospital to find out he's got broken bones, major concussion. It just seems criminal.
I know, and even for me, as a mom, I was angry. I was just angry. I couldn't understand why he couldn't see that actually you can't just pray, you have to do stuff too.
And I get it. Like, Warren kind of set up this obedience trumps everything, but what was it that everybody was fearful of? Was it eternal damnation? Was it the things that Warren would do to you in the short term? Was it?
No, for the men, it was mostly like if they did something that did not please Warren Jeffs, then they could lose their family forever. They'd get sent away. Their family would get told they were very wicked, and they would never see their family again. And that was a lot of their fear in disobeying him. It
seems like it would go against every father's paternal instinct to want to help immediately your son, and I'll deal with the consequences later. But
I think when a man has so many kids, I think some of that love is lost. I do. I think
gotta
that
like
they
a few
don't.
eggs, right?
Yeah.
I think that they don't have that as much care because they just have so many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought about that with large families like that. How can you possibly spread proper amount of love around?
And if you lose one, is it that devastating?
Right. I got 5 others
I
lined up.
don't think you can.
Yeah. Well, it pops up multiple times. You're, I think, pregnant, or you just gave birth to your second child, and you find out your mom's got breast cancer. But then you read how, oh yeah, she found a lump 2 years earlier, but Warren was like, yeah, well, it's fine, we got it, I'll pray for it. And by the time she goes to the hospital, it's terminal, and you lose your mom. I mean, I don't know. It's infuriating. It really is. It's infuriating.
Hey, one other question I had, Rachel, is the money aspect of things. You do talk a little bit about like church-owned businesses, and I think at some point you reference like millions of dollars net worth in terms of this organization. But how did that all come about? Like, how did they establish this seemingly unlimited amount of funds?
Well, at first it was just like pay your 10% tithing, but then it got to where, as the years went on, he required them to give everything to the church. All the companies, all the men were to give all their monies to the church. And so, to not build up their own homes, only as the church directed, they had to build up the church. And so they were just told to give their all or else they'd lose their place.
And what are we talking about at its peak, if you know, in terms of membership?
I have no idea, because I didn't get to know. I mean, I know when I was like in South Dakota, I'd see the money that came to South Dakota because I helped my husband because he was a bishop. But I never knew the numbers as far as the whole church. I know it had to have been millions because they built $1 million homes. And
homes that had to house dozens of people because of all these wives and kids. But you also grew companies within this church. There are construction companies and concrete companies and so forth.
Yeah, and they still have them like BZI and Faith Concrete, and they're still a part of the church. They still support the church.
No, make sure not to call them. Phase Concrete, you said?
Yeah. Some of the other fascinating parts of this book, the revelations are astounding. I kind of want to go through some of those, but your mom's funeral I found really fascinating too. If you're wondering what kind of person Warren Jeffs is and the selfish and nature and ego that he has, he spoke for 3 hours at your mom's funeral. No one else was allowed to speak. And then he says, Mother was not the perfect wife. She was jealous sometimes, and God gave her cancer to punish her. And then he also said something like he didn't want people to feel bad for her. They should feel bad for him.
Oh.
Yeah, basically he tried to make it look like he was the one that was suffering about her death and poor him, kind of, And he just turned it around that God, that it was such a test for him, and and really he had made her suffer so much.
Do people kind of look out of the corner of their eyes like, did he just say we're supposed to feel bad for him and that she kind of deserved cancer? I mean, at any point, are people gossiping in the homes? Like, can you believe he said that?
No, they don't dare.
No?
Because if they even say one word against him, they'll lose their place. people will tell on them and they'll lose their place.
God, so you're just
They don't dare say
internalizing.
anything like that.
You're
Yeah.
internalizing all of this, and
You have no one you can turn to. You can't trust anybody.
Yeah. I honestly didn't dare talk against him until I left, just because I knew any person I spoke against him to would tell on me, and I'd
because
get in trouble,
they
so.
get points, right, for
Yeah.
reporting you. So.
Yeah, they think then they feel like then they'll get put higher because there's so many levels of good and bad. And
When you broke out into the real world, you must have had. I mean, you must have gone wild for a while. Did you have a rebellious? It's like I'm wearing slutty clothes and I'm getting hammered at the bar.
At the same time, she's got 5 kids at this point.
I don't care. We're having our slutty clothes week and I'm going to the bar.
yeah, I kind of did, and then I kind of cooled down after a little while.
What was the
I
crazy?
think that's what a lot of people do. They just get out, and I think more than me, I wasn't able to as much because I'm a mom.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of young people just go way overboard just because they finally get out. They go way overboard on everything. And I don't want people to feel like they need to do it way too bad. I mean, some people go do drugs and everything, and I definitely didn't do anything like that.
What was the craziest thing you did where you're like, ah, boy, that was blowing off some steam. Probably shouldn't have done that.
I think the very first thing I did was I went out with a boy and drank.
Yes,
I've never
there you
drank
go.
beer before, and I drank a whole bunch of beer.
Good for you, Rachel.
And I was so sick that I don't know.
That's all right.
And
You've earned
because
it.
I was in Centennial, where some of my my mom's family was, they were kind of religious in a way. You know, they had polygamy, and so they all felt like I was a pretty bad person for doing that.
Yeah.
But they were vital to getting you out, right? Because while they were still in the polygamy, they were
they,
not in the
they were
FLDS.
okay. Yeah, but they let me know I wasn't doing just the right things. But yeah.
And you've been out a couple of years, is that right?
No. Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been out for 2 years.
Working, going to school. What do you got on the plate?
I went to college for a year, and because I wanted to go to some composition classes for writing, and then now I'm just got back from my book tour, you know, and I'm just a violin teacher and a photographer and a mom.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
you
an
should
author.
you should be public speaking. You should be telling your story for the rest of time as a cautionary tale to people. Seriously.
I do want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm working toward that, and I have some TV offers and stuff. So
Oh, good for you.
plan on doing some of that.
Can you explain to me one of the other things I found fascinating was the new law of Sarah revelation that Father had.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's how convenient, right?
But only Warren Jeffs got to do that. You know, none of the other men got to even know about that. It was just something that he quietly kept between him and his wife. I didn't even know about it till I left.
And what was
And
it?
I saw the records.
I forget exactly what
Yeah,
it was.
what was the new law of Sarah again exactly?
It was where he basically could have sex with a whole group of his wives together.
Oh, orgies.
And just
God told him.
but none of the other men even knew about it.
Yeah.
Boy, that God really loved Warren Jeffs. Didn't he let him have orgies with 12-year-olds?
the
I mean,
prophet.
that's he's living the dream. How convenient that God's like, you know what, Warren, you've had so much, but you're such a good guy. I want you to bang a bunch of 12-year-olds and marry him too.
Exactly.
And at the same time, he's ordering his people to not have sex with their wives, which he's hooked them all up with 8 different wives. And moreover, if you masturbate, then you're going to hell too. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, new revelation. I just found out God doesn't want kids to have toys, so we've got a burn barrel over here. If you could have the kids themselves bring their toys over and burn them.
Yeah.
It's just flat out evil. It's incredible to think that a guy was that controlling, even from behind bars.
Uh-huh.
Well, he's in the right place for him now. I wonder, do you think at one point in time, do you think Warren Jeffs is crazy? Is he selfish? Is he greedy?
I think he's very selfish, very greedy. I think, I've heard that, the law enforcement I've talked to, that sometimes they've wondered if he's crazy. He's been looked at by psychologists, but they say that he's very smart. He's very conniving. I think he's just very, very selfish. He loves himself very much.
Do you think he thinks he's a prophet? Do you think he actually thinks he's talking to God? Or do you think he knows it's all a game, but he's getting away with murder? He's having a blast.
That's
so whatever.
Sarah's law,
Yeah, Sarah's law out of it.
Yeah, I don't think he really thinks. I think he knows he's not, but I think he tries to convince himself that he is.
Well, it's a disturbing book. Like I said in the beginning, Rachel, I literally read it in one night. I could not put it down. It's a fascinating look into a religion or a cult that people just don't really know a whole lot about. And to have a firsthand account, it's a great book. It's called Breaking Free: How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and My Father Warren Jeffs by Rachel Jeffs. Did you have anything else, Jay?
No, Rachel, you've been through so much. Best wishes to you. You deserve a lot of good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree. And I know you opened this book by saying not to feel sorry for me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nah, too bad. You're getting sympathy from me because it's devastating to see what you've gone through, and hearing you be able to laugh and talk about it now a few short years later is quite inspiring. So good luck with the book.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I hope you
I
make a
sure
fortune.
hope people know that they can be strong no matter what they go through, and make a good life for themselves.
Yeah. Well, you should dump a bunch of these books over the wall where they are now, and just hope it gets in there.
Catapult, whatever it takes.
Yeah, just start launching them over the wall.
I wish I could.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much for the time. You've been great.
Bye, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right.
And though we may part, it grows in my heart, for this is my Father's law. So constant and true, my